The Thunder Before the Silence. October 24th, 1944. That dawn, Admiral Takeo Kuste Yamato, watching the eastern sky ignite, not from the sunrise but from flames. Pillars of black smoke rise where Japanese cruisers once sailed. The air smells of oil and cordite. The rumble of explosions echoes across the Sibuyan Sea like the heartbeat of a dying empire. Kurita grips the railing, his white gloves darkened by soot. Around him, the officers of the Combined Fleet Headquarters speak in clipped, urgent tones. Messages arrive every minute, and everyone brings worse news. Atago hit. She's sinking. Maya lost contact. Probable total loss. Musashi under heavy attack by American bombers. Kurita doesn't speak. He doesn't need to. He knows exactly what's happening. The Americans have found them. Out beyond the horizon, hundreds of carrier-based planes, Avengers, Hellcats, Helldivers, swarm like hornets, striking from blue sky and cloud cover. For hours, they've been hammering the center force, the core of Japan's remaining naval might. 5 battleships, 10 heavy cruisers, 15 destroyers. And somewhere above the chaos, unseen but ever present, is the sound of American naval air power. The sound Japan's admirals once believed could never cross the Pacific. Kurita squints through the haze toward the west. A lone Zero streaks low over the water, trailing smoke, then slams into the sea. "Sir," his chief of staff, Rear Admiral Kameto Kuroshima, says quietly, "We've lost air cover." Kurita nods slowly. Then the rest must endure. He looks toward his flagship's sister ship, Musashi, the pride of the Imperial Navy. Now a blazing inferno on the horizon. Bomb after bomb slams into her armored decks, each detonation sending up plumes of steam and steel. By midday, she's been hit by more than a dozen torpedoes and 17 bombs. Kurita's voice is low. "She is the most powerful battleship ever built," he murmurs, "and they are tearing her apart like a toy." At 3:30 p.m., Musashi capsizes and sinks, taking over 1,000 men with her. The sea churns with debris, oil, and the faint glint of life jackets. Survivors wave feebly as the fleet presses on. There's no time to stop. Kurita's staff pleads for retreat, but he hesitates. His orders from Tokyo are clear. Break through to Leyte Gulf and annihilate the American invasion fleet landing there. It's the last chance to reverse the tide. But deep down, he knows. Japan's navy is no longer a navy. It's a relic, a wounded beast staggering toward its own end. As night falls, the Yamato pushes through the oily mist, her massive guns silent, her decks stained with the soot of burning ships. The sea is littered with wreckage, hulks of cruisers still aflame, men clinging to rafts, the sky glowing faintly orange in every direction. Kurita stares into the darkness, his expression carved from stone. "So this," he says quietly, "is what the end of an empire looks like." The officers on the bridge say nothing. The sound of the wind fills the silence. Cold, relentless, eternal. The sea of ghosts. October 25th, 1944. Off Samar Island, Philippines, dawn comes slowly to the Sibuyan Sea. A gray, uneasy light spreading across waters still slick with oil. For the men of the Combined Fleet, it feels like waking inside a nightmare that hasn't ended. Admiral Takeo Kurita hasn't slept. He stands once again on the bridge of the Yamato, his uniform immaculate but his eyes hollow. The ship moves through what was once a proud battle line, now reduced to drifting skeletons. Everywhere he looks, there are reminders of defeat. Lifeboats crowded with survivors, planks floating like grave markers, the smell of death on the wind. "Report?" he says quietly. A young communications officer salutes shakily. Musashi confirmed lost. Atago, Maya, and Chokai sunk. Takao heavily damaged. We've lost nearly a third of our cruisers. Kurita's hand trembles just slightly as he adjusts his cap. He looks toward the east, where the horizon glows faintly, not sunrise, but fire. Somewhere out there, the Americans are advancing toward Leyte Gulf, and he's been ordered to destroy them at any cost. He knows what Tokyo expects of him: sacrifice. The old code of the Bushido: die with honor if you cannot win. But honor feels meaningless out here, amid the drifting corpses of men who already gave everything. Suddenly, a lookout calls out from the mast. Enemy ships sighted, east-southeast, multiple destroyers, light carriers. Kurita straightens, eyes narrowing. Light carriers? It's not the powerful American task forces he expected. These are Taffy 3, a small group of escort carriers and destroyers. Lightly armed, meant for close air support, not direct combat. A handful of tin cans and floating airstrips standing between him and Leyte Gulf. Signal the fleet. Kurita orders. All ahead flank. Engage the enemy. The order ripples through what's left of his formation. The Yamato, Nagato, and Kongo thunder forward, their 18-inch guns loading armor-piercing shells. It's the last great surface action of the Imperial Japanese Navy, and it begins with unimaginable fury. At 6:50 a.m., the Yamato fires her main battery. The blast shakes the sea itself, 3,000-pound shells screaming across the horizon. The sky lights with muzzle flash after muzzle flash as Japanese cruisers join in, pounding the American formation. But the Americans, vastly outgunned, refuse to run. Tiny destroyers like USS Johnston, USS Hole, and USS Airmen charge headlong into the Japanese line, launching torpedoes and firing their 5-inch guns in suicidal defiance. Commence attack! Commander Ernest Evans of USS Johnston bellows through the intercom. We're going in. The sea erupts as his destroyer races straight at Kurita's battleships. The torpedoes find their mark. One slams into the cruiser Kumano, blowing off her bow. Kurita watches through binoculars, stunned. These Americans, he mutters, they fight like mad men. They know even the tiny escort carriers, like Gambier Bay and White Plains, launch their planes as fast as they can. Wildcats and Avengers armed with nothing but machine guns and depth charges, diving through curtains of flak to strafe battleships that outweigh them 100-fold. The battle rages for hours. Kurita's ships take hits from torpedoes and bombs, their formations scattered by chaos and smoke. Reports pour in, conflicting, frantic. Enemy reinforcements approaching. Our flagship is under attack. Multiple carriers sunk. No, wait, damaged. It's confusion. The same deadly confusion that has haunted the Japanese Navy since Midway. By noon, Kurita's staff finally realizes the truth. There are no American reinforcements. The carriers before them are all that stand between the fleet and Leyte. The Americans are bluffing and winning. But the damage is done. His cruisers are crippled, his destroyers scattered. The Yamato burns from near misses. Kurita lowers his binoculars, face grim. We have accomplished nothing but destruction, he says quietly. At 1 p.m., he gives the order that stuns his fleet. All ships, disengage. Withdraw north. There is silence on the bridge. Officers exchange confused glances. After all the sacrifices, after Musashi, after hundreds of sailors dead, retreat. But Kurita's eyes are fixed on the blackened horizon. He has seen enough death to know that honor won't win a war already lost. As the Japanese ships turn northward, the radio crackles with disbelief from surviving commanders. Some curse him, others simply weep. Behind them, the waters of the Sibuyan Sea roll calm again, concealing beneath their surface the twisted remains of Japan's last great fleet. The Empire had thrown everything it had into one final gamble, and lost. Kurita stands on the deck of Yamato as the sun begins to set, the air heavy with smoke and salt. He says softly, more to himself than anyone, "We have no more ships to give." The sea answers only with silence. The waters of the Sibuyan and Samar are calm now, deceptively calm. Only the oil slicks and drifting debris tell the truth of what happened there. At dawn on October 26, 1944, Admiral Takeo Kurita's remaining ships limp into Brunei Bay, their hulls scorched, their decks blackened with soot. The last survivors of the once invincible combined fleet have come home in silence. The men line the rails as they enter harbor, faces hollow from exhaustion and disbelief. The battleship Yamato, once the pride of the Empire, bears long gashes down her side. The cruiser Nagato lists to port. A destroyer limps in on one engine, her superstructure half torn away. There is no cheering, no salutes, no words, only the dull groan of engines and the whisper of waves against steel. Kurita remains on the bridge until the very end, refusing food, refusing rest. His officers avoid his eyes. They can feel the weight pressing down on him, the unspoken truth that no one dares to say aloud. Japan's navy has died, and he was there to see its last breath. When he finally steps ashore, Kurita walks alone to the staff quarters, his cap pulled low, his uniform stained with smoke. The harbor is eerily quiet. Even the mechanics and dock hands stop what they're doing to watch him pass. He pauses briefly at the water's edge and looks back. Across the bay, his fleet lies scattered and broken. Battleships, cruisers, destroyers, all silent, their flags at half-mast. The sun glints faintly off the oil film drifting across the surface, a rainbow that feels almost mocking. A junior officer approaches hesitantly. "Admiral, Tokyo requests your report." Kurita doesn't answer right away. His gaze stays fixed on the horizon. When he finally speaks, his voice is quiet, stripped of ceremony. "Tell them," he says, "we fought. We did what we could. And now, we have no fleet left to fight with." He walks away without another word. That night, in his quarters, he writes the official after-action report. His handwriting is precise, but the ink trembles faintly, the only sign of emotion he allows himself. The report is simple. Enemy forces encountered in the vicinity of Samar. Engagement inconclusive. Fleet withdrew due to heavy losses. But history will not call it inconclusive. History will call it what it was: the end of Japanese naval power. Kurita's adjutant, Commander Toshikazu Ohmae, later recalls entering the room after midnight to find the Admiral still awake, sitting by a lantern. The window is open. Outside, the surf beats softly against the dock. "Admiral," Ohmae says, "you should rest. The men look to you for strength." Kurita doesn't move. His eyes are distant, reflecting the lantern's flame. "Strength?" he repeats quietly. When a commander sends his men to die, knowing the cause is lost, what strength is that? For a moment, the mask slips. The weary man beneath the uniform, once proud, once loyal to an empire that demanded everything, stares at the floor. "We were taught," he says, "that the Emperor's fleet could not die. But the Emperor's fleet is gone. The Americans have taken the sea, and soon they will take the sky. He falls silent, then softer still, and we have taken our sons to the bottom with us. The next morning, Kurita orders what's left of his ships to return to Japan. There are no speeches, no farewell ceremonies. The fleet departs under a gray sky, leaving Brunei Bay as quietly as ghosts leaving a battlefield. From the deck of Yamato, Kurita watches the shore fade behind them. The sea stretches endlessly ahead, calm, indifferent, eternal. He knows what awaits: starvation, bombings, the slow collapse of everything he spent his life defending. But at that moment, he no longer feels anger, only an empty clarity. The Imperial Navy, he realizes, has not been defeated simply by bombs or shells, but by the industrial might of a nation that could replace every ship Japan lost 100 times over. He turns to his flag captain. "In the end," Kurita says, "we were fighting against factories." The captain nods, but says nothing. What could he say? The Yamato's engines rumble softly beneath their feet. A heartbeat that will last only a few more months before even she, the greatest battleship ever built, is sent on her final, doomed voyage. Kurita watches the gray horizon one last time. The smell of oil and smoke still lingers on the wind. The sea is quiet now, he murmurs, but it remembers. And as the Yamato turns north toward Japan, the sun rises behind them. Over a dead fleet, a dying empire, and an admiral who has seen the end.